Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello, and welcome back to Joe on Joe Extreme. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and we're back for the 10th episode of the second season of G.I. Joe Extreme, and I want to thank everyone for coming along on this journey with us. We are enjoying it, and we are reaching around the world with the message of hashtag release the extreme. And do you want to know how I know we're going around the world? Because today's guest is calling literally from halfway around the world. It is Rob Arts, known as G.I. Joe Nederland on Twitter, calling in from the Netherlands. Rob, welcome to Joe on Joe Extreme.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, Joe.
It's my pleasure entirely, my friend. You're a new friend on Twitter. And now tell me what city in the Netherlands you're calling from, because we spoke earlier and I tried to write it down and I gave up.
Yeah, I'm calling from Deest, and Deest is like a really small village near Nijmegen. Nijmegen is the biggest city in the neighborhood here. And Nijmegen is best known for a 4-day march every year. In which a lot of international people join, also a lot of military join, and they walk for 4 days, around the city. And that's the biggest town here around.
That's exciting. And what do they march for? Is it like awareness for something, or just like an old tradition, or what do they march for?
No, it's just that. It's an old tradition, and it's quite a big march with. I believe 40,000 people joining the walk.
You're calling it a march, but is there? What are the chances that it's actually just a pub crawl in disguise?
That it's a what?
It's a pub crawl in disguise, like you're going from bar to bar, from pub to pub.
Oh no, it's really hard. People are walking like 50 kilometers a day, and then 4 days in a row.
Okay.
So you have to be really dedicated to finish the walk.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool. And what time of the year is that held?
Sorry?
What time of the year is that held?
Usually it's around this time of the year, but because of Corona this year, it was cancelled. But usually 2 weeks ago, it should have taken place.
Now, you just got back from vacation. And did you go anywhere? Did you travel around the country at all?
Yeah, now we travel to the south of France.
Oh, how beautiful is that? That must be gorgeous.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was really, really great. It's a great place to be there. A lot of sunshine and friendly people. It was great. Yeah, definitely.
And was that now? How has your life been impacted by Corona?
Big time, really big time. I'm a professional graffiti writer for my profession, and literally all my jobs got cancelled just the moment Corona kicked in. So I do a lot of workshops with children on schools. They all got cancelled. The decorations I make, like for festivals and stuff, they all got cancelled. So I literally was out of work for months in a row already. Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that, man. So you do a lot of like outdoor murals and things like that.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
Great. Where's the best place that our listeners can look up your stuff? Do you have a website of your work?
Yeah, I do. It's being revised as we speak, but there is some stuff on it at the moment, and it's called graffiti.nl.
Okay. And they can also follow you at G.I. Joe Nederland, Nederland. That's on Twitter. Are you also on Instagram with that?
Yeah, but I actually don't know what my handle is, but I think.
Well, we'll find you. We'll find you on Twitter, and I'm sure you'll be able to point us to the site. So because I want everyone to see your work. That sounds great. Now, do you bring any G.I. Joe into your work? Any kind of that that Garrido kind of element of the artwork to it, like the explosions or the hyper realism to it? Describe your work to us.
Well, I haven't done any GI Joe up until now, but since my son, he's now 8 years old, and he's into GI Joe as well, and he likes, sometimes to come along and spray some graffiti. So we talked about it, and he would like to make a GI Joe mural with me. So I think it's in the works, yeah, but not until now. What I normally do is I make not something like something from inside of me. I make what my
Right.
customers want. So if they want letters, I make letters. If they want an image, I make an image. If they want some color scheme, I make a color scheme. If they want a combination of that, I'll just do that.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see your work, man. That's really gorgeous. Now, is the home where you live? Have you just completely? Is it all decoed out with your work, or like have you? Do you do the opposite? Do you leave your artistic work at work, and your house is
Yeah.
just a square white painted black and white domicile?
Well, it's pretty colorful, but that's not because of the paint, but it's because I have a really gigantic wall completely filled with books and comics, and
Love it.
that brings a lot of color in the home. Next to that, I have just one painting, a canvas of a friend of mine, and that's actually it. I don't have anything else here in my home that would tell somebody that I'm a graffiti writer. So I think it's best to leave it, on the streets.
Yeah.
And when I get home, I just want, my rest, and I
You're,
don't want to drown in graffiti all day long. Yeah, just
now,
like that.
now let's talk about your intro to GI Joe. So you're I imagine you're born and raised Netherlands, right? Like, is that
Yeah, correct.
are you from that town?
Yeah, I'm from a town, a little village. It's even smaller than where I live now, and it's called Word.
Okay.
It's really next to Nijmegen, like stone's drop away, um, and that's where I grew up.
And did GI Joe reach to that town?
It definitely, did. Yeah.
Were you getting the cartoons or were you getting the cartoons or the toys?
Well, both actually. For example, we got introduced into GI Joe. I believe it was in 1987. So I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, and we got the cartoon. We had Sky Channel, and there was a show called the DJ Cat Show, and we had Super Channel, that two TV channels, and they broadcasted cartoons in the weekends, in the early morning, and I believe it was Super Channel that broadcasted the GI Joe cartoon, and He Man was on Sky Channel, and I love both actually.
Mm.
Uh, so I recorded it, old school VHS, so I could rewatch it again and again and again, and I still have them, the old videotapes, and uh, yeah, at the same time they introduced the toys into the Netherlands, but in 1978, 1978, 87, we had like the 1985 US line, so we were 2 or 3 years behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when they stopped making them in the U.S., did you guys then keep getting them for 2 years, or was it just cut off? Like you never, you know what I'm saying? Like did the line catch up to where you were at, or when they stopped here, were you 2 years behind when they stopped?
Well, they when they stopped in the US, they stopped in the Netherlands as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember um, when the GI Joe Extreme toys hit the shelves in the US. They did sell them here in the Netherlands as well. I remember the ads in the toy catalog. We don't have Christmas over here. We do have Christmas over here, but we don't um, uh, celebrate it like you do in the US. We have another saint, and he's called Sinterklaas. and he's kind of the same as Santa Claus, but he comes a little bit earlier in the month of December. But it's the same principle, and every year you have like this catalog from the toy companies. I can remember that G.I. Joe Extreme was there, and so yeah, there was nothing else you could buy. So I love to get them, but I was actually, getting a bit old.
Yeah, you're phasing out. You're phasing out at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't buy them. I regret it at this point.
Well,
But,
listen, they're not that expensive. You can find them on eBay.
Yeah,
With
but
global shipping, I think they'd still be pretty affordable in mint on card even.
yeah, I know. I did see them, but when I do buy stuff now, I rather complete my vintage GI Joe
Yeah.
missing instead of the GI Joe Extreme. But you never know. It might be something up ahead.
I mean, listen, Rob, today's episode might ignite a passion for G.I. Joe Extreme in you that you never knew existed. You might watch this episode and just be like, I need to release the Extreme. I need to do it.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah, I'm not overhyping this at all. Well, listeners, today's episode is called Wreckage Revenge. And this, every week I say it's a good episode. This is a really great episode because this goes back to those, a lot of the ones we got in the first season, which were about the backstories of the bad guys. And this goes back to Wreckage's origin, which, if you remember last time we saw him, what we saw was a soldier who got hurt in battle, taken into a lab, and transformed into like a Frankenstein monster. And that's all we got of the origin. This episode takes that and builds on it and shows us how he got hurt, who he was before he got hurt, and it adds all kinds of backstory to this episode. This is the episode I've been praying for since the end of last season, when we saw that that Wreckage and Freight were kind of getting along and like they were, like they weren't each other's enemies. And I don't know if you guys remember, I was like, oh, I really hope they revisit that. This is the episode. They apparently did, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, Rob, did you have any problems following along who the characters were or anything?
Well, to be honest, I haven't ever watched an episode of G.I. Joe Extreme.
Oh, we're going in fresh.
Yeah, you gave me access to all the episodes, and I did download one, the first episode of season 1, but I didn't watch it. Today, actually, I did let my son watch it because I told him I would be on the podcast later on.
Uh-huh.
And he asked me, what is G.I. Joe Extreme? And I told him, the only thing you can see it is if you watch the show. So I had to get some groceries. He stayed in the car and watched the episode. And when I got back to the car, he was actually really, really enthusiastic about it.
Oh, I love it.
This is so cool. I wish it was in Dutch because he's only 8 years old. So, English is not his best thing. But, he did understand a lot of things that happened and he really enjoyed it. So we'll be watching the other episodes together. So that will be cool. But for me, I'm going in completely fresh.
I am so excited. Very excited. And I love seeing that, hearing that your son loved what he saw too. That means, a big part of cartoons obviously is the visuals, but that storytelling aspect of the visuals, where you can get the story across without the dialogue. That is huge. A lot of cartoons can do that well. A lot of them don't. There's certainly the best cartoons need both dialogue and action. So I love that he watched it and without really understanding what was going on, was able to follow it and dug it. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Today's file card is on Space Shot, the combat freighter pilot. File name is George A. Roberts. His birthplace is Everett, Massachusetts. He's a grade E4. His primary military specialty is interstellar pilot. Secondary military specialty is combat operations engineer. Space Shot was known throughout the galaxy as a fly-by-night freighter pilot with a rebellious reputation. Blindfolded, he'd fly loads of cargo through the rings of Saturn for fun, the kind of fun most pilots would have nightmares about. Duke knew he couldn't pass up recruiting such a skilled pilot, and after a few hard lessons in military discipline, Space Shot became less of a rebel and more of a hero. He has since defended 4 space stations from Cobra attacks and makes Cobra Black Star pilots look like flight school trainees. Where to begin with Space Shot? He's got that Han Solo background where he's a space smuggler. But how do the Joes know about this rebellious interstellar smuggler? That's how far G.I. Joe got. Remember, these file cards, we're kind of working backwards now. G.I. Joe has recruiting interstellar astronauts. This guy wasn't a military guy that they said, here, go in our space shuttle. This guy was already running a trucker convoy between stars. And then G.I. Joe said, we got to have you. His helmet is really wild. It's got an odd shape that it flares off the back. He's got a pretty cool laser pistol, and he's got a big, weird, clunky backpack. His suit has has like one side with shoulder flare and the other side without shoulder flare. And it's futuristic, and it's good to know that in the future, in space, we need to carry grenades. I'm starting to really love all these weirdos. And so George A. Roberts, who was born in Everett, Massachusetts, who went on to become an interstellar smuggler to then become inducted into the U.S. military after being an interstellar smuggler and creating a reputation for yourself. Space Shot, we salute you. Well, listeners, while you're on the internet following Rob at G.I. Joe Nederland, I need you to go and follow me at Joe and Joe Pod. Now, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We're also running a Patreon. You guys can go and be a patron and help support the Joe and Joe Show. It's patreon.com/Joe and Joe Pod. And Rob, I'm excited. I officially have in hand. Now, this episode's not going to air for a couple weeks, but I didn't want to really nail it down until I had them in my hand. I have Joe on Joe face masks.
I saw it today on Twitter.
Yeah, Joe on Joe COVID face masks. So all my patrons are getting face masks. So I'm very excited to be sending those out. There's limited quantities, of course, but yeah, I'm excited. And if they're well received, then maybe we'll make another batch up. But so far, so good. I think they look great, and I'm excited to be wearing them out and have people stare at me. I'm like, why are you wearing your name not only once on your face, but twice on your face? So that's. And remember, everyone, when you're out there and you're tweeting G.I. Joe, and we're sharing stories about trying to find toys at Target and Walmart and all this stuff, hashtag release the extreme, and make sure Hasbro knows to not forget about G.I. Joe Extreme. We want to get them to release this show on some type of streaming or format or cleaned up something, so we're not watching an old VHS recording from Appleton, Wisconsin. So listeners, get your videos ready. Those of you who have the bootlegs, we're watching episode 10 of season 2 called Wreckage Revenge. Rob, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, here we go. I love this opening. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not as, I'll say, it's not as catchy a tune as traditional, Real American Hero, but really what is, right?
That's correct, but it sure looks spectacular.
Yeah, it does its job. So as the episode opens, it's Wreckage Revenge. It's written by Steve Englehart. I'm not surprised that it's so good. Steve Englehart is a big-time comic book guy. Absolutely. Big-time comic book guy. Avengers? Defenders, I want to say. Yeah, Steve Englehart's he did a ton of comic book stuff in the 80s. So, not surprised that this is good. We open with Wreckage, Rob, Wreckage is the guy with the metal hand. The real big guy, right?
The real big guy, yeah.
He's very upset because he's been experimented on over the years to be turned into that, like, monstrous-looking dude. And he's on a Skype call, basically. He's on a Zoom with Rampage. And Rampage he's kind of like mixed the Tomax and Zaymot with Tony Stark and the Incredible Hulk. And so he wears a suit of armor and he gets big and green and mean, but he's like the businessman like this Tomax and Zaymot.
What a good idea.
So
that's the one now in the screen, right?
Yeah, the guy in the suit, right. Yeah. Later on, I don't know if he suits up this. I don't know if he suits up this episode, but he's basically plays that role. He's also got a little bit of the role of Destro. And listeners, what he's saying is if Wreckage helps him out, he'll, with this deal that this arms deal they got going down at a quote smuggler's dock in Cuba, which
Cuba,
I
yeah,
love.
right.
I love the name smuggler's dock because like there's a smuggler's dock here, then over here there's the regular, legal warehousing dock, where normal trade goods are, but do all the illegal stuff over at the smuggler's dock, and they're doing an arms deal, and the Joe team is there in full force to break it up.
In full force, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
He came out of nowhere.
They totally did. But what he was gonna, real quick for our listeners at home, basically said, you help me and I will tell you more about your origins, Wreckage, because Wreckage doesn't have a lot of memory from before he was turned into this monster. So that's kind of the deal. He's doing this because he wants to know more about himself. There's Eagle Eye. He just hits Wreckage straight up in the chest with a rocket launcher.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah.
My body heals itself, but I can
You can't hurt me.
Yeah, you can't hurt him. But here comes Freight. Now this is great because now he's going into this like a flashback basically, and he's remembering another time in his life when he saw Freight. So picture.
Hey, these are flashbacks?
Yeah, it's a flashback. So now, Rob, remember, think of, you know what this part of the scene reminds me of? It reminds me of when Larry told Snake Eyes' origin. And they were talking about Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow in Vietnam together. That's the flash. That's the vibes I'm getting on this.
You okay?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're seeing that
You okay?
Freight worked in a unit with Wreckage, and his name was actually Eric.
You're gonna make it.
And Eric, when
Yeah,
he
we worked together.
and he wasn't a monster then. He was like half the size that he is now. So he wasn't this steroid freak. Certainly his arm, was normal. And so there's a history there, which I really, really like. I like that all the Cuban soldiers, they all do look like Fidel Castro with the hat and stuff. Did you catch that? It's so good. So what, Rob, what did your G.I. Joe collection look like when you were a kid? Did you get a lot of the toys? Did you just have a few of them? Did you, what, and do you still have them? Like, what was your collecting style like?
Alexander from Oakland, like me.
Well, I think I got a pretty badass collection when I was a kid. My main focus in toys was G.I. Joe. I also had some He-Man and some
But when he saved me from an attack,
And do you have?
Transformers.
Yeah.
But G.I. Joe was definitely my thing.
Do you still have any? Do you still have any of those?
About,
alive, but I am alive.
I have it all.
Oh, nice.
Brilliant.
Do you let your son play with them?
Yeah.
In between you and Eric, I can feel it.
Well,
Don't deny it. You
used to keep them safe, in little zipper bags.
Yeah.
And I got my son the more recent stuff like from the movie and stuff like that, so he could play with that. But he's really careful when he plays with the toys.
Yeah.
So last year on his birthday, I told him, my collection is your collection as well, so you can play with anything you want, just as long as when you're ready with playing with them, you put them all back in the bags.
Nice.
So I keep my own of what I have or what I don't have.
Yeah.
But he can play with anything he likes. Yeah.
Well, that's
sure. And he
very
does.
that's very cool. I love.
Recently we picked
Yeah.
up. And we picked up the G.I. Joe photography together. So that's a real nice touch to play with your son with the same toys.
Yeah.
And I like to get the old school figures out.
people like Wreckage.
Yeah, there's a charm. There's a charm
somewhere.
about. There's a charm with the old school ones. We've been fast and furiously getting the classified ones, and they look really cool, and I do dig them. But there's a charm about the old ones that I don't think will ever be surpassed for me. On the show, we've got Iron Claw and Rampage. They're having a little tete-a-tete. Now, what's neat about this is they are having this conversation about Wreckage's origins in this carved-out Scar bunker It's reminiscent of the old school Cobra bunkers. Remember, like anytime on the Sunbow series, you'd cut away to Cobra's headquarters, and it would be carved into like an Aztec mountain or a snow-capped thing or something like that. That's sort of what they're doing with Scar, but it's not as, I would say this, it's not as well done. So Scar's still trying to be as cool with their in-mountain headquarters as Cobra.
What are we doing
So
here,
Freight,
This is the place
who
where I lost Eric, my best friend.
earlier basically said, you remind me of Eric. He's not sure that he is him, but he's got everything about him. I'm pretty sure you're somehow related to Eric, his best friend, who they both grew up in Oakland together and they went to the military together. But he thinks Eric is dead. So they're going to find out the truth together.
We cleared this place out so they can build a base.
So that's Freight. And now we go back to another flashback here.
2, 1, 0.
Are you excited for the upcoming G.I. Joe movie and all that stuff? If COVID ever lets us release movies again.
What about the enlisted men's club?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you
Big Eyes was always one of my favorites.
Yeah, is he?
You know, a movie dedicated to him. Wow, man, I just love it. Can't wait.
Me too. I actually I really hope that I hope they just go VOD with that. I know, it may not make him as much money, but I don't know what's going on with the theaters. But I hope they don't delay it, is what I'm saying. I would love to see it go VOD just because I want to see it early, but I do want it to be as successful as possible. Now, are you guys getting the classified?
Yeah.
Are you guys getting the classified 6-inch toys over there yet?
No, not until now. And
Nothing?
I don't think we actually will. No.
Are there plans?
Some of my friends they ordered them in the US.
Yeah.
And they got them. So this week one of my friends will come over and he will bring them so I can hold them and see what they look like in real. But it's pretty expensive. If you want to order them, I think you'll pay about $40 for each figure.
Ooh.
For transport and
$40
taxes.
just for shipping.
We cleared
Yeah,
the
for
bar.
shipping and
Yeah.
taxes. So
Oh, wow.
that's raise the price a lot. Doubles the price actually.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So that's a bit of a turn off for me. But I can only hope and dream that they will definitely release the new G.I. Joe stuff in the Netherlands. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think they will.
I just hope that they're prevalent enough, that there's enough going around for everyone to get some. We're seeing a lot
That would
more.
be great.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more flashbacks here, and we saw the two friends get into a bar brawl, and now we're seeing that that Wreckage is remembering. He's remembering things like they do in a lot of the
They told me you
like there's stories where people have head trauma where it's like they remember it, he remembers it one way, but the reality is this. So Freight was told that he was dead, but he remembers that he was abandoned, but he wasn't abandoned. What he's remembering is what they told him, they being Ironclaw.
Army. You don't question, General.
We're now halfway into the episode,
Yeah,
and I really like it actually. I
good.
think it's cool.
Yeah, what do you think
Yeah.
what do you think of the art style? You're an artist yourself. What do you think of the art style?
Well, I already heard it a couple of times before. They use a lot of black in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Activate hormone stimulator.
It's probably to obscure the lack of money put into the series.
Yeah,
But it works. It works like hell. It's really great.
it really does. And I think they make a lot of cool stylistic choices here. One, all these flashbacks being this like sepia tone look to it, which is great. We
Which is
just
great,
we
yeah.
just saw that scene with the scalpel, where we saw actually Wreckage being transformed into Wreckage for the first time. The way they framed that was great. With the focus going in and out on the scalpel, and then the quote doctor's face, but we all know that that's Ironclaw from his previous origin episode. So now these two are they're in this village that they were at years ago, and they find two dudes.
And look at
Yeah.
Did you see that? You know, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
Instead of black, you know, it's the white. Wow.
Yeah,
Love it.
it's like the negative effect. Yeah. So we got two dudes who look just like
You
Wreckage.
have those cyber arms.
So cool.
They have cyber arms, and they're like Frankenstein, like he is. They've got the scars on their faces and stuff. So it's almost like they were test subjects for the, you know, what you would call the Wreckage program. I do think it's really funny that, like, it seems to be the common thread here is this metal arm. Like, somehow the metal arm. You ever play that
How are we feeling today?
that old video game Bionic Commando?
Been part of an important military
I did hear the name, but I never played it. So.
Yeah, but if you remember it, it's an old school one. They released one on PS4, I think. But it's where literally the power is you have a bionic arm, and that's your big drawing, you know, your drawing point. And that seems to be the thing, the catalyst here
I'm afraid there's no
for this
authorization
whole
for that.
procedure. It's like, we can't make you a giant steroid monster unless we also give you a metal arm, which jives with the previous episode when they were going to put a metal arm on Freight. If you remember, well, you'll see it when you get to it. But listeners, if you remember that was the big thing. Remember, they were gonna graft that metal arm on Freight, even though there was nothing wrong with Freight's arm. He didn't need a metal arm. It's not like he had a prosthetic.
He was the one in charge.
And I think it's absolutely charmingly ridiculous that that's the crux of this, whatever this, you know, operation is. It's all centers around giving people metal arms.
Became a monster. He became a man with a skull face.
But they all have like this operating procedure on their head
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, they do. It's, you know what, it's funny. It's kind of like how Larry Hama uses the brainwave scanner in his comics. You know what I mean? Like this MacGuffin science thing that gets applied in a lot of different places and just keeps going everywhere. That's apparently the bionic arm in the G.I. Joe Extreme universe.
Yeah.
That's the first crime, sure, but to the world. Otherwise, it's
So these soldiers, these other guys, they were experimented on in this village, and they were basically left there to forage for themselves for who knows how many years it's been since they've been abandoned by the military that did it to them. So it's kind of like it's like they were all part of the secret soldier serum program, and, you know, Captain America, and they were abandoned. And Wreckage apparently was the successful one.
I know you didn't mean that, Eric.
See, Freight's calling him Eric. Now they're gonna fight.
Whatever I have to get Iron Claw.
And Wreckage. Oh wow, it's awesome. So this is basically two monsters, just because they're just the biggest people in the world, just fighting each other. Oh, there's that bionic metal hand. So who was your favorite G.I. Joe, Rob?
Well, to be honest, it wasn't a G.I. Joe, it was a Cobra.
Even better.
Yeah, it was Major Blood.
Oh yeah, because of his poetry.
What else?
We're going to commercial. We're going to be right back. Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts, and you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie? It's about not two movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben, and each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, you know, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. You know, it's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Pensarga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show. Yeah, so it's all about Major Blood's poetry, right? And I get it. That's great. What about him? What about him was appealing to you? Did you fall in love with him in the comic or the figure first? Or?
Are you okay?
I did see him in a comic, and the actual figure was not available in the Netherlands. It was in the UK, but not in the Netherlands. So it was like this thing you want but you can't get, and yeah, the way he looked with his helmet on, it was really like this militaristic villain, you know, with his eye patch. And yeah, he looked so badass to me. So yeah, that's the one I liked then, and that's the one I still like the best.
Awesome. Now here's the eternal Major Blood question that we've always had, because you can hear it at some point early when we started recording this. I'd never realized when I was a kid that his right arm had metal. I knew it had metal on it, but I didn't understand what it was. Did you think that it was? Do you fall in the camp that it's a bionic arm, or is he just wearing some kind of like prosthetic device, like to cover a normal arm?
I know for sure it's a bionic arm, and I think we'll get back to that later on.
So, are you trying to say that Major Blood possibly was part of the Wreckage bionic arm program? Is that what you're saying?
Well, he might. Yeah, he might.
Because I didn't put that together until literally right now. But yeah, Major Blood had a bionic arm. Yeah. I never realized that when I was a kid. I really didn't. I just thought it was like a funny armor protection on his arm.
So did I.
Yeah, and I know on some of the later cartoons they show him getting a bionic arm. But then there's some cartoons that he definitely does not have a bionic arm. Like he has a normal arm. So it's always my Major Blood question. So Wreckage has found Ironclaw, and he is not being kind to him. Ironclaw looks really good in this episode, by the way. The colors really pop on him. I don't know. Maybe it's just the quality, literally the quality of the VHS recording, but I think Ironclaw looks great.
He does. Yeah.
Now, do you find yourself getting like how often do you get some of these older figures, or how complete is your older collection? Like, do you spend a lot of time on it, or do you get like a new figure every few months or something like that?
Well, it goes on and off, you know. Sometimes I buy a lot, and there might be some figures in there that I'm missing, so
right.
I can complete my collection, and the rest is going to my son.
Oh, great.
And sometimes I buy just one figure, but there also are sometimes months go by that I don't buy anything. You know, it depends on what I feel like. Sometimes, you know, I'm really into buying something, and the other times I just let it be. I'm not in a hurry to complete something.
Right.
I would like to complete the earlier years, like from 82 until let's say 88. That's my main focus. And there are some years that I'm pretty complete. You know, just missing a couple of figures or a few accessories, but like 87, you know, I'm pretty complete with that one, and 86 as well.
That's one of the things I like about collecting specific older stuff, where you can like if you're collecting newer stuff, they can always come out with more new stuff. You know what I mean? And everyone's rushing to get it. Like you said it earlier, where there's no rush for you. You know, so it's like, you know, that there's this set pool of things that you're going to eventually get. So you're going to get them. I've treated, for me, I'm a bigger comic book guy than I am anything else. And I've treated my X-Men collection that way. And over the years, I've winnowed it down to, I believe I only have 2 or 3 issues of X-Men post, from the Claremont era, from 94 up. I need like 2 or 3 issues at all, period. And it's because I've been in no rush, like I get 1 or 2 a year. I pay good prices for some of the older ones, and I get them in nice condition. But I'm like, they're not going anywhere, and I'm not going anywhere, so just take my time. Like, there's no mad rush to get it. I like that part of the collecting.
That's what I like to. If you're in a rush, then you pay the price.
Yeah, you do, right? Exactly, because that's when you have that. Real quick,
Stay tuned.
they drove Iron Claw away. Wreckage and Freight are friends again. Wreckage seems to have his memories back. So now I'm going to say we have 3 episodes left. Is there a chance that we're going to get like a Wreckage hanging out with the G.I. Joe team episode? I feel like that's a lot to ask in only 3 episodes, but I'm absolutely in love with the character growth they gave him this episode. This is really, really solid. Yeah, I do. With collecting, I like the long game there, where you can wait. You can not be in a rush. Even when books get hot, that eventually they're going to come back down to earth, so why rush and get, overspend for it just to get, something now because you need it now, Yeah, that's my collector 101 on that. Just to play the long game, and I think it'll be more satisfying for you. Well, Rob, on this show, I love to ask my guests if you could be a member of the Joe or Cobra team or Extreme team or Scar, who would you be? And like, what would your specialty be? And then we'll come up with a code name for you. So what would you specialize in, and what team would you be on? What do you think, Rob?
Well, I have to be honest. I would be on a Cobra team.
Yeah.
And since my name is Rob Arts, my last name is Arts, and it means doctor in Dutch. So I would be Dr. Blood, the mad scientist uncle of Major Blood, who gave him the bionic arm.
Nice. I love it. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love it. Dr. Blood. Welcome to the Joe on Joe Extreme team. That's great. Dr. Blood. Oh man, and you're his uncle? I love it. You gave him the arm. That's what you said earlier. You said, "Hold on, wait for it." That's what you were talking about earlier. I was like, "Wait, what are we waiting for here?" That's exactly it. Oh, I love it. Rob, welcome to the team, Dr. Blood. That's exciting.
Thank you very much.
So what did you think? I know, we talk over it a little bit, so it's a little hard to follow everything, but what did you think of your first episode of G.I. Joe Extreme?
It was really, really, really cool. Way better than I expected. It was like something from the dark ages from G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really searched for anything online for the episodes or something. But I missed out on a lot. That's for sure. So I'm glad I can watch all the other episodes, the old ones, together with my son. I'm sure it will be a blast. Yeah, it's really cool.
And that's because as a guest, I'm giving you full access to my Google Drive with all of these episodes downloadable and watchable. I've only got 3 episodes left, guys. If you want to be a guest on the show, jump in. There's a couple feelers out there right now, but send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. But more importantly, though, why wait for me to send you the link? Let's bug Hasbro with #ReleaseTheExtreme. Let's get Hasbro and G.I. Joe Official to release these episodes online, on streaming, on YouTube, somewhere, so the world can see that these are really, really good. I dug this episode a lot. I'm on record saying Freight's my favorite Joe character, and I've kind of really like Wreckage a lot too on the Scar side. So this is fabulous, and I really enjoyed having you on, Rob. This was great chatting with you and getting to know you.
Thank you very much. It was great to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, we appreciate you keeping the G.I. Joe dream alive over there in the Netherlands. Do you have like any other like big G.I. Joe guys local that you're friends with, or is it all remote for you?
Well, actually here in the neighborhood around Nijmegen, we have like 4 people collecting G.I. Joe.
What?
And yeah, that's massive for the
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a real small community over here. Like perhaps like 20 people that are online regularly. We have a website over here.
Yeah, give a shout. Let's give that website a shout out.
Yeah, the website is called gijoe.nl, like NL from the Netherlands, and there is a forum connected to it. So we hang out over there. And like I said, 4 local people collecting GI Joe, so that's massive.
Yeah.
And the owner of the website, Marcel, he comes by regularly, and we operate the site together. So he does the complete website, and I manage the magazine. What I do over there is I post links to podcasts and YouTube videos, or even sometimes Twitter messages or any other news, surrounding GI Joe. For example, on the new movie or the classified series or the new retro line and stuff like that. So that way I'm pretty up to date on what's going on, and it's just cool. It's a completely new website. We relaunched it like a month ago, and there's a real big archive dedicated to the GI Joe toys that were released in the Netherlands and in Belgium. So we try to make it complete, with pictures of the packages, in Dutch language or in Dutch French, because that's for Belgium. And it's getting bigger and bigger every month. People still sending us new pictures of things we are missing and stuff like that. So it's becoming a real great website. Yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, Rob. That is so cool. So shout out to those guys. Hello, and hope you guys, thanks for listening to this show, and welcome aboard, man. I love it. You're doing the good work, Rob. I appreciate it so much. And thank you personally for helping be on the show and contribute to Joe and Joe.
Well, it was completely my pleasure. I've been listening to a couple of your recent podcasts on G.I. Joe Extreme when I was working, putting my headset on, listening to the podcast, and it was just great. I love hearing it. So when you told people, you can be on the show, I connected with you, and now we're here. So
fabulous.
Great being here.
Now we're here, and now we're listeners. We're in your ears. So thank you all so much for joining us again this week. Remember, Release the Extreme, Rob Arts, or should I say, Dr. Blood. Thanks for being on Joe and Joe Extreme. And now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle. Extreme!